Welcome to Tough Talk Media, where real conversations shape real impact. Join us as we dig deeper into thought-provoking perspectives that challenge, inform, and inspire action. Subscribe today and be part of the conversation.
Welcome back. Let's get to have that conversation now, as President Bola Tinubu has not only reviewed, he has also revised the previously announced lists of presidential pardons and clemency. Inibehe Effiong is a human rights activist and legal practitioner. He joins us live now from our Abuja studios. Owomi, good to see you again this morning. Allow me to get a bit mischievous with you this morning. The president of Nigeria, your friend, whom you have been very critical of, the father of the nation, as politicians call him, he has listened to you. He has bowed to the pressure. You were here on this platform criticizing him of this presidential pardon. He has listened to your voice, Inibehe. How happy are you to hear him bow to this pressure of your voice?
Good morning, and thank you for having me. I think, like you rightly noted, your question has an element of mischief, but that is on a lighter note. Whether the president is the father of the nation or not is a subject of debate. What I know is that I have a president called Bola Tinubu, and to some extent, to his credit, it is good that that list has been reviewed. The initial list that was published was an embarrassment. It was a dent, not only on this country, but on the character of the government itself. So when some of us came out publicly to distance ourselves from it, to deprecate the names that appeared on that list, we expected that something would be done about it. Now there's an argument that some lawyers are making, some of our colleagues, whether the president can review that list or not. I initially had taken a more cautionary approach by saying that, look, yes, Mr. Bayo Onanuga, the special advisor to the president on media and strategy, had stated, published a list which he had said the president had granted pardon. To the extent that what was done at the time was limited to a public statement, we can say that the process of pardon was incorrect in law. In other words, it was incomplete, because for a presidential act in the nature of a pardon to be said to have been fully exercised, there has to be an instrument, evidencing the exercise of that power. And that is what President Bola Tinubu has done. And we have now seen certain instruments, various instruments that have been issued for various categories of beneficiaries of this prerogative of mercy. So now that there is the instruments evidencing the pardons have become absolute, or the prerogative of mercy so granted are now irreversible. But we now further interrogate how come that the previous list even came to public light. If you look at the process for issuance of pardon under the Constitution, I cite specifically Section 175 of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended. It involves three institutions: the President, the Council of State, and the Presidential Advisory Committee on Prerogative of Mercy. Now, before an announcement is made, it is expected that the Presidential Advisory Committee on Prerogative of Mercy, headed by no less a person than the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, would have scrutinized the list, vetted the profile, the records of the individuals who are to be recommended to the president for pardon or commutation of sentence or whatever aspect of prerogative of mercy is to be exercised. Now, when the president receives the report or recommendation of the Presidential Advisory Committee, the Constitution mandates that the president will, in consultation That is, the president will now go before the Council of State and say, oh, these are the persons that I want to exercise the power of prerogative of mercy in their favor.
All right.
What is your thinking on it? So I am making a case that while it is commendable that the president had made tinker a bit with the list, we must now ask a legitimate question about the manner in which decisions are being taken by this government. What this speaks to is that either this was done intentionally to send a message to Nigerians that as far as the issue of pardon is concerned, these are the categories of offenders that the president has interest in. Or those who had responsibility to advise the president may have either been compromised or grossly incompetent. But whatever position one decides to take, I am not satisfied that the president has not taken action regarding the membership of that committee.
All right. Inibehe, just before I get to ask you my next question, let's get to remind our viewers why this presidential pardon list was really very controversial. It had the name of Miriam Sanda there, who was convicted 5 years ago, 2020, for culpable homicide of her husband, Bilyaminu Bello, and initially sentenced to death by hanging. It also has Kelvin Prosper, described as a notorious kidnap kingpin whose activities spanned multiple states. There's also Farouk Lawan, a former member of the House of Representatives, sentenced to 5 years in 2021 for bribery, collecting about $500,000 from a businessman. And then there's the convicted drug offender there, and list and all of that. So just to remind our viewers why this list perhaps was a bit controversial, this top of 4 issues or persons why that list was also really sparked outrage and outburst amongst Nigerians here in the country and around the world. But Inibehe, you are saying that perhaps heads should roll. Give us some of those.
Yes.
Give us a sense of some of those offices or persons you think that Mr. President indeed should be questioning or relieving of their duties.
If you read the statement of Mr. Bayo Onanuga, there is a paragraph that I found rather interesting. That is the paragraph in the statement where he said that in order to avoid this kind of embarrassing episode in the future, that the president has now directed that the secretariat of the Presidential Advisory Committee on Prerogative of Mercy should be relocated from the Ministry of Special Duties to the Ministry of Justice. Does that mean that the president has found that the Ministry of Special Duties was compromised, or that the Ministry of Special Duty is inefficient? It is not enough to simply make this announcement. I am saying that if truly the president is remorseful, if truly the president has now admitted that he was wrong and is now making this concession in favor of public opinion, it is not enough to simply make certain reversals. Who made these recommendations? At whose instance were these names, the original names, put on the list? The president should be interested in addressing that. You see, because there is one point that we have to make and stress very seriously. And that is that when the president exercises the power of prerogative of mercy, he speaks eloquently to the character of the president. And I'm going to elaborate on that. If you have a president say, the person that I want to exercise this very unique power that the Constitution has vested in me in favor of, and you now choose that there are going to be persons convicted of hard drugs, engagement in trafficking of cocaine, there are going to be persons who committed grievous murder, there are going to be notorious kidnappers, there are going to be persons who stole public funds. Does that not say a lot? about the thinking of the president. Does that not say a lot about the priority of the president? So this is not just about exercising power. Because in exercising that power, the Constitution demands that the president should act in the public interest. So whose interest is the president advancing? And look at the case of Miriam Sanda. We are now being told, from what we have seen, the instrument I have seen, that her sentence has now been reduced from death by hanging to 12 years imprisonment. She has already served about 6 years and 8 months. And what is the reason given? It is in the interest of the children. She has become a model for other prisoners, a change in character, and so on and so forth. But guess what? There are 1,000 Miriam Sanda across custodial centers in Nigeria. She is not the first woman who has been convicted and sentenced today for killing her husband. Why is her case special? Nigerians deserve some explanation. I concede that this is a matter of discretion. The point, however, is that in exercising this discretion, the president has to show, the president has to demonstrate to Nigerians that he's acting in good faith. This woman has only served for about 6 years and some months for taking the life of her husband, Bill Yamiyu, in a very dastardly way. Read the judgment of the court. Read what the judgment said. So I am not certain that 12 years is sufficient for the grievous crime that she committed and the manner she committed it. I am not even sure whether she is truly remorseful. But I leave that for the president. Now, in the list that has now been published, people should not assume that persons convicted of drugs are not beneficiaries. They are. Because it seems a section of the media is conveying the impression that persons convicted of drugs are completely excluded. I have looked at the list even as I'm talking to you. I could count in total about 86 names. Some of those persons whose sentences have been reduced, they were convicted of engagement in illicit drugs. If the intention, I want to emphasize, is to decongest our custodial centers, how about persons convicted of petty offenses? Have Nigerians asked that question? How about persons who are victims of political persecution? How about persons who are convicted of stealing monies that are not significant? There are still, how about persons that were given options of fine that may even be less than $1 million? How come the president has not deemed it fit to exercise the power prerogative of mercy in their favor? That is persons convicted of federal offenses. So I am saying that something fundamentally went wrong. And the president has the responsibility to address that. What he has done is applaudable, but it is not sufficient.
Well, thought-provoking questions that you're asking there, Mr. Effiong. And, you know, one might wonder about people who also have been awaiting trial for years and they're behind bars. I don't know whether they fall within the category of prerogative of mercy. But you raised a very critical question about the further statement in the paragraphs in the statement released by Mr. Bayo Onanuga, and which is the movement of the Secretariat from Ministry of Special Duties to where was it now? To another ministry. Why is that
Ministry of Justice.
Ministry of Justice? Why is that not sufficient to ensure that in the future the processes of granting prerogative of mercy is transparent? And who do you think should be taking the heat at this point in time from Mr. President in terms of not having advised him accurately on this list of prerogative of mercy that has stirred controversy?
The answer is certain. It is the Honorable Attorney General of the Federation. Because when you say you are moving the Secretariat, what is the Secretariat? Is it the chair? Right? Is it the books, their records? What is Secretariat? So, when the Secretariat was in the Ministry of Special Duties, who was the head of the committee? It is still the Honorable Attorney General of the Federation. So what's really, in practical terms, what difference will it make to say you have relocated? Of course, that may have certain advantages in terms of maybe proximity to the Attorney General. But given the preeminence, given the importance of prerogative of mercy, the Attorney General had a responsibility to advise the president properly. He is the chief law officer of the country. That is what section 150 of the Constitution says. The only ministerial position that is created under the Constitution expressly is that of Minister of Justice. There is no other ministerial position in Nigeria under our Constitution that is expressly created under the Constitution. Section 150, read along with Section 174, creates the office of Minister of Justice and Attorney General. That shows how important that office is. So the Attorney General has a responsibility to account for what has happened. But there are other members of the committee. What was their position in making the initial recommendation to the president? Right? And they are telling us the president consulted with the Council of State in reviewing the list. To your knowledge, was the Council of State reconvened? Did he consult with them virtually, via Zoom, via telephone? Did he call all the former heads of states individually to consult with them? I have not seen any evidence that the Council of State met. Because I know that the Council of State traditionally convenes at the presidential villa. So there is no evidence that the Council of State was actually convened to reconsider this list. Because the president, constitutionally speaking, cannot exercise power or prerogative of mercy in favor of any person without consulting with the Council of State.
So you're suggesting that there's been political interference that has shaped that list?
Of course, that is what it is. It is political. It is political. Was former President Goodluck Jonathan consulted in reviewing the list? Did he call former President Obasanjo? Did he call former head of state Ibrahim Babangida? Right? Did he call all the chief justices of the federation? Who are the members of the Council of State that were consulted in reviewing the list? How did he consult with them? They should tell us. So I have doubts, and I believe it's a reasonable doubt, on whether the constitutional process for awarding this pardon and commutations have been satisfactorily met. But to the extent that instruments have been issued, the principle of regularity in law maybe can avail the president, because that principle, that presumption of regularity says that acts of government of this nature are presumed to be regular. But I'm saying that presumption is not without exception. Did the president actually convene the Council of State to consult before reviewing this list? Why has the Attorney General not made a statement to explain his role and apologize to Nigerians? We live in a country where public officers seems to be allergic to accountability and offering apology.
Mr. Effiong,
it's not enough to simply say you have reviewed the list.
Stay informed, stay inspired, stay tuned to Tough Talk Media, where real conversations shape real impact. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe for more thought-provoking discussions. Thanks for watching.